Hi there, it's Fran Davidson from psychicandenergywork.com.au, and this is my monthly update for September 2024. How's your month been? How was August? Hopefully you're feeling things are getting a bit lighter now. They certainly seem to be lightening around my neck of the woods, so I hope they are in your world as well. This update really wants to act as a halfway stopping point through the month in a way that just touches on a few points, hopefully to energize, hopefully to inspire, and hopefully, most importantly, to help you on your way. One of the thoughts that have really been coming into my mind of late is how easy it is to just pass energy on. It's interesting, isn't it? We are collective beings. Hey, we exist in groups. We have families, we have employment, we have social circles. And sometimes a byproduct of that is, should we say, the unwritten, don't know what it is, rule, expectation that whatever I do, it's okay. It's okay to pass that on to others. It's okay to do it in a way that others are supposed to accommodate that. And of course, in one sense, that's exactly what we need to do as social beings, as spiritual beings. But energetically, sometimes that gets a bit too much. Sometimes contracts, whether they are work contracts, whether they are relationship contracts, any contract, sometimes we can sign up for a particular arrangement without necessarily knowing, expecting that with that can come what could be called a certain level of dumping. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody around us intends to dump. In one sense, again, it's just a byproduct of the fact that we live in groups, part of, should we say, existing as a family unit, irrespective of how that is structured, can involve the need to accommodate, the need to be patient, the need to be forgiving, all of those things. And none of what I'm saying is about arguing against those perspectives in a balanced and spiritual way. But again, sometimes in certain groups, that, should we say, rule, expectation, can come with the sort of assumption that it's okay for me to do whatever and pass that on in a way that everybody else just sort of has to lump that. Of course, we're all guilty of doing this from time to time, me included. So none of this is about the fact that as human beings, we get to deny this as a challenge, as a learning curve, as an experience, and even as a strength as we learn through it. And yet September seems to be highlighting this as a way of inviting people to step beyond the level of contract they've been in to the degree that it's ended up slightly abusive, slightly one way, slightly just not as good as we know it can be. Sometimes we can exit groups on the belief that, hello, we're releasing it, we're processing it, we're dealing with it well, and yet we still dial into the model. And then we wonder why, hang on a minute, but I left that group, I left that dynamic in a physical sense. I'm no longer going and hanging out with those people as much or at all. And yet on the energetic level, we're still well and truly linking into that and wondering, therefore, why we keep attracting it. Spirituality is interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes, every so often, it asks us to do something to the nth degree, 100%, rather than necessarily the 99%, the 95%, whatever percentage it was that we were doing it before. And so I find the joy of spirituality in a good way and perhaps not so good way is the fact that every so often you do get reminded of the fact that, hello, it is 100% that the universe is aiming for. And that doesn't necessarily mean we deliver 100% or should even expect ourselves to deliver 100% all of the time. It's just that life is the journey towards the 100% in all the various ways that it is. 2024, in its own way, I believe, has been showing individuals, all of us in its own way, exactly these things. I've talked every so often this year about the fact that 2024 is a year that's learning about our recipes. What are we, should we say, entertaining? What are we putting up with? What are we contributing into the mix in a way that ends us either up at 100% success, yippee, or perhaps not so? 8 is a time that can every so often see us feeling, you know what, I'm not quite happy. Things aren't together, in a way that I don't necessarily know why that is yet. And yet 8 years tend to create a space that contributes enough space around that question to encourage us to go in and look at that. And so what I'm trying to get at there is 8 years sometimes, even though they can be very, very busy, they can also manifest at the same time as that happening as a period when I'm not hitting success at all. It's not quite there. And so we can sort of be very busy but dissatisfied, or very busy and not quite fitting with the surrounds that we're in, or vice versa. 8 does this to actually invite us and, in one sense, corner us into processing where that level of gap or discontent or ill-ease is within our being, around our being, and also in our perceptual framework. So 2024, which reduces to 8, is in part about helping us all get rid of the imbalance that plays out in a relationship sense. And even that's interesting because 2024, there's 202, isn't there? And hello, we've had 202 since the year 2020. But 202, every time it comes around, so every day, every moment, not because we need to be manic about that, but 202 tells us that we're here to experience aspects of relationship and socialization, social life, then withdraw from that, that's the 0, or not necessarily withdraw, but find ourselves in a space where perhaps we've got more space, we've got more nothing or inaction than usual, and then regroup into the world of relationship to consolidate what we first experienced or observed. And through that dipping in and out of the social theme, the social dynamic, the group dynamic, and even the relationship one-on-one dynamic, through that, we're helped to make sense of things to the point that we start to understand that the 4, which is about the models, the frameworks, the approaches, the habits, the patterns, through those things, then we start to realize, oh my goodness, this isn't creating happiness. This isn't creating contentment for everybody. Not in an uber sense necessarily, but certainly in a balanced way. And so again, part of September 2024 seems to be about, yes, bringing closure, being a 9-month, but also helping people come to that realization of, you know what, if it is outside of me, if it is around me, it is not mine. That doesn't mean I don't have a spiritual responsibility to be kind, to be inclusive, to be balanced in however I respond to things. But also, too, it highlights the fact that we don't have any control over what's outside of us, do we? And so, but also within that, energetically, and this is especially important to say to empaths, because empaths can be very, really wary of that label in one sense, because whilst it's a very valid label, not everybody who picks up things on a feeling level would necessarily describe themselves as an empath just yet, if not at all. And so really when I'm saying empath, I'm talking about people who pick things up, from their environment, whether that is, hello, I'm picking up a sense, or whether it is, you know what, I get home and I'm always feeling drained, I'm always feeling headachy, or perhaps I'm not always, but perhaps in this moment I'm feeling as if, there's this real weight around me. So sometimes those feelings of draining, weight, pressure, even depression, sometimes that comes from the outside rather than necessarily just manifesting from within. What we are amongst tends to magnify what we ourselves are resonating with on a perceptual or an affirmational level. So if I come back to that statement then, 2024 is helping people realize that if it is outside of me, if the energy or the dynamic, the vibe, the pressure even, if that is coming from the outside world toward me, in one sense, sometimes that comes as if it's a given. And this is where I dovetail right back to the beginning of this recording, because sometimes, of course, in relationship, we are running on programming we are not even aware of. And some of that programming may well be, it's okay for me to do this. Not even necessarily because I think about it, what I'm doing, but just because, hello, that's what I've been doing. Maybe that's what I was born into. Maybe that's what I'm professionally surrounded by. But either way, it doesn't always breed balance, does it? And so in part, again, September is about highlighting this to the point that it is flagging to people the fact that, hello, you don't have to take it on. You don't have to absorb it. And therefore, within that, you have to, whomever, you have to allow yourself to be separate from the world around you, not in an isolating sense or a rejecting sense, but in a way that therefore doesn't set up a given, an automatic download, an automatic feed of negative energy through to you. Sometimes negative energy comes towards a person because of how they are positioning with the world. In other words, hello, I like to be helpful. I like to be kind. Maybe I like to be polite. And obviously, I would argue most of us like to do those things. Most of us aspire to do those things. But at a certain level, they can present as an imbalance that invites those energies in. Why? Because we're not looking after ourselves well enough. We're not nurturing ourselves well enough, but probably we're not, should we say, prioritizing ourselves well enough, valuing ourselves well enough to make sure that through that prioritization, nurturing, valuing, we have already, in one sense, created what could be called a defense system against energy that would be inclined to just hoe on in and make like it wants to make with the joint without any invitation. So to the degree that you've been feeling a little like this of late, a little put upon, and hello, I'd argue there is a lot of that going on, especially in the employment world, but also in the relationship sense. And again, often through no fault of anybody's. Often the pressure is so great to just do and go and achieve that all of a sudden with that come a whole lot of shortcuts and a whole lot of buck passing and a whole lot of ball passing that isn't as good as it could be. So this is part of what 2024, which reduces to 8, is trying to help us all through and over so as to get to the right dynamics, the balanced way to do things. It goes without saying, doesn't it? All is choice. But you see, just because somebody chooses, even on an unconscious level, to project in a certain way doesn't mean that they nullify your choice to accept it or not. And again, sometimes, especially in contract, formal or not, we can sort of take on a stance that either it's okay for me to determine for you these things without asking, or perhaps even without even considering the spiritual balance in what I'm doing. But also the other side of the contract, which is how am I interfacing with this in a way that makes sure that everybody is looked after at the same time. So on one level, how do you deal with these energies? You just let them go. You let them go at your end. You don't worry about fighting with them on an energetic level. And certainly as a first step, you shouldn't be worrying about fighting with them on a physical level either. Physical meaning verbal as well. Energetically, it always pays to let go of everything in a way that enables that everything at all angles to know what it needs and know what it wants. And when I talk about that, I'm not talking you. I'm talking about resolution, peace, harmony, balance, fulfillment. Energy only comes at us because it doesn't know where to truly reference. When it does know how to truly reference, more importantly, when you know how to truly reference, energy starts to read the sign, and even if it comes towards you, it gets deflected off you to the place it needs to go, which at the end of the day is something like source, the universe, white light, integrity. We only pass negative energy on because we don't know any better. If we knew better, we wouldn't be passing it in that direction. And so sometimes, instead of becoming overwhelmed by what's coming at us or staying in subordination to it, the job is to remember, hello, there's only one source. There's only one place where all needs get resolved energetically, spiritually, at least. And the minute we remember that, that's the minute we are already putting out a sign saying, you know what, not this way, not at this person. Go towards white light, go to white light to resolution, go to source to resolution, go to universal will and harmony. So in a sense, our letting go work needs to always include all. We let go of all. I let go of all bombardment. I let go of all heaviness. I let go of all selfishness. And implicit in that all is not just everybody else's, it's mine. But also too, it's not just the all that I'm aware of, it is all on every level. Because at the end of the day, we're channels. And a lot of what we do on a conscious level is just unconsciously channel what we're not even aware that is playing through us. And so by letting go of all, you're not just letting go of the source as you know it to be, the source of the issue as you know it to be, but you're letting go of all sources of the issue, just in case, shall we say, the person or the relationship through whom that egoic level energy is playing isn't actually the beginning of that flow at all. So whenever we're doing release work, it pays to let go of all in a way that we're letting go into the I don't know. You don't have to know and label to release. You have to let go and not know to release it all. By doing that, you come to know all that you need to know out of the dynamic, about the dynamic, in a way that empowers, heals, liberates, not just you, but everything involved. Lastly, as you're letting go, do it with the knowledge that 2024, and not just 2024, life in general, always, forever, every aspect, every layer, every angle, it's only doing what it's doing to get us all to the right place, to the right one meeting point, integrity, harmony, goodness, from all the different angles we are operating at. The more we know this, the more we can put what we're doing now, responding to now, into or back into that big picture, the more we open the door for universal help and therefore universal guidance, not just for us, but for everybody. So in a sense, this monthly update is about helping you let go of those paradigms that do not suit, that subordinate, that dump on. In all the ways they do. At the end of the day, again, we all do it on some level or another, often without even meaning to. Sometimes by doing the energy work, I'd argue often actually, but sometimes by doing the energy work first instead of the confrontation or the meeting or the talk, we actually help a dynamic clear in a way that the confrontation and the meeting and the talk aren't even required. Why? Because when we let go of something and help it shift, everybody else involved also lets go at the same time. It is through our choice to let go that we enable everything else to be released from the very thing that we're locking into. So all the very best. Hopefully these words inspire. Hopefully they help. Hopefully they see you finishing your September in perhaps, I don't know, a firmer note. Yeah, a more accompanied note, and perhaps even a more spiritually human note. All the very best to you. Thanks for tuning in. If you wish, visit my website, psychicandenergywork.com.au, for the monthly observations, which come in on the 1st of October. And if not, I'll be posting another monthly update for October, mid-month next month. Thanks again for tuning in. Take good care. Holler if you need.